The next episode of Nerd, Flicks, and Chill will start in
3, 2, 1, 0.
Hey everybody, this is Nick,
And this is Carrie.
and we are Nerd, Flicks, and Chill. Today we're bringing you our Game of Thrones Season 6, Episode 10 preview and predictions episode for The Winds of Winter.
Can you believe that we are at the finale? It's here.
I can't believe it.
It
Can you
seems-
feel the winds of winter blowing?
I've been waiting. We've been told winter is coming for 6 years now. I have been eagerly awaiting this moment.
You were eagerly awaiting the White Raven to bring you the news.
Yes, which it looks like we see that in the preview. Either that or Sansa's getting her letter to Hogwarts. I'm not sure.
So how many times have you watched the Battle of the Bastards?
Ooh, I've watched it 3 times now.
Yeah, I'm on 3, but I've watched that battle scene in particular maybe like 4, 5, 6, a dozen times.
Yeah, it's definitely worth multiple viewings because you pick up on little things. When you are watching Jon and that tracking shot right in the center of the screen, it's really interesting to go back and watch it to see what's on the peripheral, what's on the edges of the frame, because there's stuff that's going on out there too that you don't notice the first time. Really good.
Yeah, another really cool thing that we got this week was the Game of Thrones Season 6 soundtrack, which I know you and I have both listened to, and we've been
Yes.
chatting about it quite a bit over the last couple days, and it is phenomenal.
You know, this whole season has been so cinematic as a whole. So if you think, okay, we have 10 episodes, just under an hour each, right? So that's 10 hours. That would be equal to roughly about 3 long movies, like Lord of the Rings, for example.
Yeah, 3 Peter Jackson movies.
Yes. So Lord of the Rings came out over a series of a couple years. This was shot in a single year. I mean, could you imagine if Lord of the Rings came out in 1 hour increments, over just a couple weeks? Just the thinking of the enormity of what was filmed. Now, granted, Lord of the Rings had more battles and there were other things that were going on, but I'm speaking in a broad sense here, so stick with me. But the score, the effects, just everything, the locations, everything that went along with it. It's just when you think of it in that way, what they have accomplished in one season of a television show, of this show, has been just completely monumental and just amazing.
Yeah, and it's just changing the landscape of TV. And I think that I don't want to go over too much of what I said in the previous episode, but I do think this is a big show and a big episode of a show for the landscape of television and how we watch TV. It's really interesting if you go on like YouTube and you look up like reaction videos where people film themselves reacting to, trailers or even episodes of Game of Thrones or whatever it is. And it's a weird thing that people do, but for some reason it draws viewers in. And, I saw a few reactions for this particular episode of Game of Thrones, and I'm like, man, this is kind of the new thing now. Like, people gathered in groups to, kind of share that experience. And I think this is saying a lot about the way that we watch TV in the future and maybe the quality of shows that we'll see starting to hit TV. But that soundtrack, though, I don't want to get sidetracked, but that soundtrack is really, really good.
It is good. And I think sometimes what you're watching on the screen is so just amazing, and the spectacle of it all, that sometimes you don't necessarily notice the music as much. But to go back and listen to it, like especially for example the track called Hold the Door, which is that whole sequence there underneath the tree in the caves while they're being attacked by the White Walkers, ending with the emergence of Hodor and the demise of Hodor. you can really just picture that whole scene with the music, with the build up and the tension, and oh, I relived it again just listening to that track. So well done. And the thing that's crazy is that if you go and listen to it now, there's a couple tracks on there for the episode that hasn't even come out yet.
Yeah, yeah, a lot of stuff for the episode 10 finale that really seems to kind of set the tone for what to expect in this
Yeah.
episode. And I have my predictions, which we're going to get into, but at the same time, like I find myself having a difficult time making my predictions because I'm not sure how far this episode's going to push it, and we'll get to that when as we get into some of those aspects. So we're going to break down the preview a little bit. We're going to go kind of section by section in the preview, and then we're going to talk about some stuff that isn't in there. But a couple of things that we did see in the preview for next week's episode, the finale. We do get some more stuff from Winterfell. We do see a white raven flying to Winterfell, a little overhead shot of a white raven.
And so the significance of that, I believe, if my memory serves me correctly, and tell me if I'm wrong, that the White Ravens are specifically home to the Citadel, right? That's something
Correct.
that's it's very specific to the Citadel and the Maesters that are there at the Citadel, and they serve a specific purpose.
That they do.
And what is that purpose?
That purpose is to tell you the Stark words.
That winter is coming.
Well, that winter is here.
That winter is here. So it's
They
for the
the
changing of
yeah
the
the
seasons.
the white ravens are the changing of the season. So the black ravens are your like text messages, but the white ravens are those weather alerts that you get on your phone.
I love that analogy. That's good. So it looks like we are officially being told that winter is coming, or winter is here.
Yeah, yeah. So I wonder, do the Starks change their house words during winter?
Winter is here.
Yeah,
Winter is leaving.
like I know.
Winter is done.
We do get the Raven flying to Winterfell. We also see Jon and Sansa talking about how they need to trust one another because they have a lot more enemies now. So it looks
Well,
like we are getting some more stuff going on up there at Winterfell.
well, I also think it's because he's probably going to be like, "What the fuck, Sansa? You had this army that was coming and you didn't tell me? Why didn't you tell me? We just lost all of these people. Thousands of our people just died. You should have told me this." So I think that's what he's getting ready just to completely unleash on her. At least that's what I would like to see.
You know what I was wondering about this? And I don't know because this would have had to have happened off screen, but I wonder if Jon knows about Littlefinger and the way he kind of set up Ned Stark.
There's no way that John would know that.
Except that Janos Slint was the King's Guard or the leader of the City Watch, who also was kind of part of that backstabbing. And then Janos Slint was sent to the Wall by Tyrion.
Oh,
I mean, there's a paper trail. There's like an evidence trail that could potentially lead you to that conclusion.
yeah,
And maybe Sansa thought that Jon knew that, and they wouldn't have accepted help from Littlefinger.
maybe.
But I mean, that might be asking the viewer to do a little too much connecting the dots there.
Well, the show does lead us to have to connect the dots quite a bit, but they also give us point blank a lot of things as well. So I, I think that might be stretching it a bit too much, but who knows?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little hard to kind of get my head around that particular portion as to why Sansa wouldn't tell Jon, but I'm sure that's probably going to be revealed to us in that conversation, or at least it looks to be that way. We also have Littlefinger and Sansa out in the Godswood.
Yeah, you know what I
Yeah, look
want. Oh,
creepy.
yeah, that is a little creepy. I'm thinking is he insinuating that, you know what I want? Like I want you. Like, is he going there? It seems like he's going there, and it kind of creeps
So
me out.
here's a question for you. I think we've talked about this before. Unfortunately, I don't know if it was on the podcast or not. But Littlefinger's actions,
Yeah,
is this part of his calculation or is he acting out of his weakness for Sansa?
I don't think this is part of his calculations at all.
So in this case, then you think that he is behaving out of character, and I guess what I'm wondering here, and this is kind of the one of the predictions that I've been teetering on, because I could totally see Sansa murdering him right there in the Godswood.
Whoa, that would be huge.
Yeah, I could see it happening. The thing is, I'm not fully set on that idea, just because I don't know what that does with the relationship between Winterfell and the Vale and how that would go forward and, what would happen then.
Do you think
But I
she's
could totally see her murdering him right there.
do you think she's high on the power and adrenaline that she just got off of having and watching Ramsay killed?
No, but I think of it as kind of like the Michael Corleone thing. Like, if you ever saw the end of The Godfather, you've got Michael Corleone dealing with Carlo, and he, like, Michael basically wipes out all of his competition, and he brings in Carlo, who set up his brother at the very end. And as the audience, you don't know that Michael knows that Carlo set up his brother.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's this whole scene at the end where he basically says to him, "You have to answer for Santino. You have to answer for the fact that you killed my brother." And he ends up killing him right there in the last scene of the movie.
Mm.
And part of me gets that, like, Sansa as Michael Corleone in this situation where she's going to settle all family business and just kill Littlefinger right there. Because Littlefinger, yes, he is the one that started this entire Game of Thrones. He
Yeah.
started the whole thing. And I don't know that you could ever have any safety or stability or anything like that with him out there playing his game. And I think that's something that Sansa could be very well aware of.
What do you think he is telling her? Because I think he's wanting Sansa and he's wanting to marry Sansa so he can be Lord of Winterfell.
Well, he does want power. You know what's really interesting is there was that conversation a couple seasons ago where Lady Olenna is talking to Varys, and they're talking about Littlefinger.
Mm.
And they talk about how he has, no power and he has no lands and he has no army. Well, he already has power, he already has lands, and just how long will it be before he gets the army? And now he has one.
Yeah.
And all of that has kind of now set us up in this position where Littlefinger, if he did have some sort of marriage alliance with Sansa, he would stand to be one of the predominant powers in Westeros. And if there's any instability in the capital at all, who knows what that leaves?
I don't think Sansa would be game for that at all because I think she's been at her breaking point where she no longer wants to be somebody else's pawn. She doesn't want to be just the arm candy that she, thought she was going to be when she was a little girl. That she's past that now and she is not going to go for that, I think, by any means. So I'm really looking forward to that scene to see what happens.
I'll go out on a limb and I'm going to say Sansa kills Littlefinger in the Godswood. It's just the perfect place to murder him. I know that sounds really weird, but it's like the perfect place to kill him. It's this, like, peaceful, serene area, and it would be just like this show to make it bloody, you know.
Yeah.
And it would be a very cutthroat move, pardon the expression, on Sansa's part to do that right there, like settle all family business. This guy set up your father. He killed your aunt and he lusted after your mother for years and years and years. He's nothing but a nuisance.
I love that idea. I don't think it's going to happen. I kind of now want it to happen, but I don't think it's going to happen. If it does happen, you're going to hear me cheering. I should be filming one of those reaction videos because I will react very strongly if it does happen because I think it would be awesome. But I don't think it's going to happen. I think he's going to try to have some kind of proposal or something, and she's not going to go for it. And I think they're just going to end up having some kind of a discussion and some kind of a talk. And she's going to walk off in a tizzy or something. I don't think
Well,
she's going to take anything into her own hands like that, but I would be so happy if she did.
another discussion that looks like it is going to happen will be between Davos, Melisandre, and John about what happened to
Yeah.
Shireen.
Yeah. Yeah.
Davos
I'm,
found the stag that he carved for her,
yep.
and now it's time for payback.
Yeah, I'm wondering why he's dragging John into this. Unless John just so happens to walk in on it or something, because he is yelling at her to tell him what you did. Tell him what you did. So it makes me wonder, why is John involved in all of this? Unless because I guess John is the acting Lord of Winterfell, even though he's a
Well, they both
bastard.
serve John.
That's
They
true.
both served John. Even before the battle last week, they both served John. Davos is a guy who needs a leader, and Melisandre is a woman who needs a god. And they found that in John. So now they both work for the same boss, but now they have an issue with each other. So John has to do a little mediation.
Yeah.
My question is, what is John going to do here?
Yeah. I'm wondering if Davos is saying we need to either banish her or kill her or some kind of a sentence for her, but I would think John would be a little bit conflicted because she's the one that just brought him back to life, too.
Yeah, and I mean, John has seen what Melisandre can do, obviously. And I don't know. I think if he does anything, I don't think he'll kill her. I think he would banish her. But I don't think this results in any of their deaths. I don't think we see Davos or Mel go down in this one.
Yeah. That is a confrontation that I'm looking forward to, though.
Oh, absolutely. So, what else do you think we're going to get out of this story at Winterfell? Is this going to be contained to those two stories, or
I think so. I think because we saw most of all the all the big Winterfell stuff happen last episode. I think these are just the last little things that we're going to see, unless Brienne arrives back at Winterfell and we have another Brienne and Tormund scene. I would be
you
really
never
happy
know?
about that.
You can just spend the off season writing Brienne and Tormund fan fiction if you want.
Yeah, I probably will, or at least be thinking about it. I already have.
Well, I do think there's going to be one more big piece of information that comes out of this. And I'm not exactly sure how it's going to go down, but I think we're going to get a big piece of information about John. And I think we're going to see John's role elevated a little bit as we propel ourselves towards next season.
Now, I don't. Well, okay. Let me retract that a little bit. I do think we will get that missing piece about John, but I don't think John's going to know about it. I think Bran is the one who's going to know about it. And unless Bran arrives at the wall or beyond the wall or to Winterfell, which I don't think he will, I don't think John is going to know. So that's why I'm separating it, that I don't think that's going to be a part of Winterfell. I think we will finally see what happens in the Tower of Joy, but I don't think he's going to know about it until next season.
Maybe. I'm interested in the dynamics of this. Like, who runs Winterfell? Is it John or is it Sansa? If it is Sansa, then John needs something to do. And it
Yeah.
would be really interesting to me if he were to kind of be elevated the same way that Robb was by the Northerners.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, it depends. He's a bastard, so will they get behind him?
Well, one of the things that we're seeing in this season of the show is that the old world is dying.
Yeah.
Like, we've seen houses die off, we've seen species die off, and it gives you this feeling of out with the old, in with the new. Like the old world is crumbling so that a new world can emerge. And I don't know in this new world that bloodlines are going to matter as much.
Yeah,
Will we see Lyanna Mormont?
I hope so.
I know they gotta use her as much as they can because like next season she'll be like 25. It'd be like the way Rickon and
Right.
Ollie were.
Yeah, I'm curious as to how many of those 62 Mormont fighters were left afterwards.
Maybe their numbers actually grew. They're like gremlins, they multiply. There are now 134 Mormonts.
It's amazing.
That wouldn't be doubling though.
No.
Wouldn't it be 124?
Y- yes.
Okay. Just checking my math. But yeah, I mean, the Mormonts just multiply. They just keep growing.
Yes.
If they fight enough battles, they'll soon have a huge army.
That'll be amazing.
I would
Though
love to see more of Lyanna Mormont.
me too. But she had great stank face at
Yes,
the
she
battle
did.
weigh-in. That's all it was. It's just one shot of her giving complete stank face to Ramsay, and it was beautiful.
It was. Now, we do know that we will be seeing Bran because he is in the preview.
For a
We don't know
flash, for a
yeah,
second.
we don't know where he is. But I
No.
do think with Bran we are going to get the reveal of what's in the tower. It's kind of the lingering thing with his story at the moment.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that's pretty much a done deal.
We also know that the Night's King has Bran marked. So what does that
Correct.
mean? Do you think we'll see the White Walkers in this episode?
Yeah, I do. And how or what? I don't know, but I think we will. We'll either see them assembling or heading off towards the wall or something. Yeah, I think we'll see them so we know kind of what's happening with them. But I don't think it'll be much. I don't think we'll get much of them. Just a glimpse so that we know that they're there, that they're on their way or something.
I'm going to make my big prediction about that once we
Okay.
make it through the rest of the preview.
Okay.
Because I've been thinking about how I want this to end, and it might be total like fan fiction on my part, but whatever. I'll give you my bold prediction for that.
All right.
Let's see. Let's go over to Marine. We'll talk about that. With Marine, we do see that we've got Danny and Dario chit
Mm-hmm.
chatting a little bit. Looks like it's kind of a serious conversation. I don't know if it's like a lovey conversation or if it's a breakup conversation. I don't know, but the two are in like a very intimate setting and they're talking and something's going on there. And we also hear Tyrion tell Daenerys, "You're in the great game now, and the great game is terrifying." What do you think that means?
Well, between her and Dario, I think that's a goodbye. I don't think he's coming with her.
Really?
Yeah, I don't think he's coming with her. I think he's gonna stay in Marine or in Essos. Yeah, I think that's the goodbye send off.
And what about the great game being terrifying? Are we talking about is Tyrion talking about the Game of Thrones that Dany is now throwing her hat into the ring for?
Or the game of love. I mean, they're both equally terrifying. Um, that's the thing. Her and Dario have this intimate scene together, and he's like, "Well, you're in the game now. It's terrifying." Um, no, of course, he's talking about the Game of Thrones. They're taking a chance. They're getting their people on ships, and there might be some dissension from the people of Marine because their leader is getting ready to leave them, and there might be some apprehension on the side of the Calls. They're going into a land that they've never been in before, or the Dothraki. All the Calls are dead, but the Dothraki, they're getting on these wooden horses that they referred to them to go across. So she's it's probably all weighing on her, and she's a little bit stressed because even like in that little bit where he's talking to her, it looks like she's sitting down and she's not sitting on her throne. She's almost looks like she's just sitting on the steps or something, and she's kind of leaning forward, and uh it looks like I don't think she's second guessing herself, but I think maybe it's a conversation where she's realizing that this is a bigger deal than maybe she thought. Maybe it's the reality of it is setting in.
And does this end with Dany on her way to Westeros?
I hope so. Oh my
I think it
gosh.
has to, right?
It
Like I feel like it
has
has to.
to. This is
Like
it's she's been talking about heading back there for the past 6 seasons.
this season should reasonably, I think, for any viewer, end with like her on Drogon's back, two other dragons flying along too, and a fleet of ships, and they're just, on their way.
Yeah. Kind of like how that one season ended with Arya heading off to Bravos.
Yeah, yeah, it should be a very similar thing. I
Yeah,
do think we will find out where she's going to land because if she is going to go to Westeros, she needs an ally, a place that she'll be able to land. And I think that's what Varys was working on
I think
last
so
time we saw
too.
him.
Yeah, I think so too. I have a feeling. Now, there wasn't anything of this in the trailer or in the preview, but I do think we'll see Dorne, and I think it'll just be a quick snippet, and I think it'll be a quick snippet of showing Varys in Dorne.
Well, it's probably the best and safest place for her to go.
Yeah.
Like it'd be the most welcoming, I think.
I really like this idea because then we will have three power women
Yeah.
together.
Well, and the other part about it too that would be kind of ironic is that if Danny made some sort of alliance with Dorne, it would be interesting if that's where she came into because the one area that Aegon couldn't conquer when he took over Westeros was Dorne. And that's
Yeah.
why like they still had,
But
they were
look
the
at
one that
this. Look at this big picture. We have Sansa in the north, basically being the
the
queen.
Lady of Winterfell.
Yeah. So we have her in the north. I mean, we'll talk about King's Landing in just a moment, but I think we're getting ready to have Cersei being a complete crazy badass in King's Landing, and then we've got Dany, we've got I can't even remember her name now in Dorne.
Alaria Sand
Thank
and
you.
the Sand
Yes.
Snakes. How could you forget them? They're everybody's favorite
Yeah,
characters.
well, because we've seen so much of them this season. How could I not? And Yara, all these women coming into power.
Lyanna Mormont.
Well, yeah, that one too. Oh, I like her. Spunky, stank face. Love it.
So I do think we will get that idea of where Danny's going to land. I mean, she can't just take off without a place to go.
Yeah.
And you feel like Dorne is just the safest, most logical spot for her.
Yeah, I agree.
Another thing that we see in this preview, and this one to me is the one that I am having the hardest time with, but it keeps one of my crazy lunatic theories alive in a way. It's the shot of Jaime Lannister at the twins dining with Walder Frey.
That's an interesting. There's an interesting look on his face, and to me, the look on Jamie's face, it's as if he's not fully there, or he's got something. It's almost like you can see the gears grinding in his head, where he's not buying the stuff that's going on, or he's got a parallel storyline that's going on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, um, I in my heart of hearts, what I really want is for Jamie and Braun to be riding up to the twins, and Braun will be like, "Hey, that's a nice castle. I wouldn't mind something like that." And then Jamie just goes and wipes out all the Freys
Just to give Braun a
just to
castle?
give Braun the castle and to like do what's right by Brienne because Brienne
Well,
kind of
yeah.
gave him a little bit of shit about supporting the Freys.
Yeah. But would he do that though? Because he even said before in the tent with Brienne, he's like, I can't go against my family. I'm not gonna go against my family.
Right,
So I,
right.
I I don't know if he actually would. I think maybe part of him wants to, but I don't think he would. But there's something about and it's just a superficial thing and it's just in a flash, so I'm probably reading way too much into it, but there's just something about the way that he looks, the look on his face. doesn't say I'm sitting here because I'm with you in this celebration. I don't know.
Yeah. So regardless of how this shakes out, I want somebody to kill Walder Frey. And if it's not going to be Jamie, I was trying to think of who else it could reasonably be. Well, what if it's the Brotherhood without banners?
That
What
comes
if
in
the
and
Brotherhood, yeah, what if the Brotherhood shows up and just goes in and starts taking down all the Freys? They'd have to probably wait for the Lannisters to leave because they wouldn't have the numbers to be able to take them all on, but they could certainly knock down dumb Walder and his stupid kids.
but why would they?
Why would they?
Why would they what motivation would they have to kill the phrase? Other than the fact that you can't stand them.
Without Lady Stoneheart, they don't.
Right.
But that is kind of the Brotherhood's role in the books.
Yeah, but if you're not introducing that character, then it doesn't make there's no connection there, then it doesn't make sense. You can't just arbitrarily have them do it. Unless you're going to have another group of dissenters like what happened with the hippy dippy hobbit church building people.
All right, so maybe the Brotherhood without banners meets up with Arya Stark. And Arya, the Hound, and the Brotherhood go in and just kick everybody's ass.
Okay, that would be amazing.
I mean, that'd be a little bit, probably not likely to
I
happen.
don't I don't think
So
that would be likely in this episode. I think that could be something likely next season. Do you think we're going to see Arya arrive in Westeros already?
maybe. I don't know. Kind of doubt it because I feel like it's going to be a full episode and some stuff will probably have to be left behind. So and when I'm trying to piece together what's happening here, I'm either thinking that Jamie is going to kill the Freys, which seems kind of unlikely because he has a one-track mind and he wants to get back to Cersei. I'm wondering if he's being confronted with his own morality here. Because
Yeah.
we do get the line where Walder Frey says, the Freys and the Lannisters send their regards, and that's what he said to Roose Bolton. That's what Roose Bolton said to Robb Stark before he killed him. And I feel like this might be that going full circle. It's kind of so I've been wanting to talk about this
Mhm.
for a while now, so I figure this is probably as good a place as any to do it.
Okay.
The theme of this season, and we've talked about it before, but the theme of season 6 up to this point has been rebirth. Not just rebirth in the literal sense, but in the sense of characters dealing with aspects of their newer selves.
Right.
So let me give you a couple of examples.
Okay.
John was literally reborn this year. Literally.
Yeah.
Like, brought back to life. Mel and Davos had kind of a figurative rebirth because they had new leaders to follow. Brienne reborn because she had new ladies to serve after she was able to fulfill her oath to Catelyn.
Yeah.
Sansa was kind of reborn after she had left and escaped Ramsay, kind of reborn as this lady of Winterfell who is, I think the line in the book is that her skin turned from, porcelain to steel. So she's kind of reborn. Theon is reborn as Theon from Reek.
Yeah.
Arya is actually reborn when she gets her vision back as no one. More on that in a second. Dany was reborn as a Khaleesi when she burned all the cows. The
Yeah.
Mountain was kind of reborn last season, but we're seeing Mountain 2.0
Yeah.
in this season. Obviously, the Hound was reborn this season as well.
Yeah.
We also had Cersei, who she did the Walk of Shame at the end of season 5. So in season 6, we're seeing the new reborn Cersei as somebody who's been stripped of all of her power, all of her finery. We also see Jaime reborn when he's kicked out of the King's Guard. Now he's the Lord of Casterly Rock leading the armies.
Mhm.
We also see Marjorie reborn as this pious zealot. Wink, wink. Tommen reborn as somebody who's now part of the Faith of the Seven. So we've seen all these different rebirths. And then the other thing that's kind of happened here is a second rebirth. So characters who were unable to deal with that new versions of themselves have kind of, in a sense, died again and been reborn a second time just in this season. So my examples of this one were Arya as Arya. So she's not no one, she's Arya Stark. The Hound, he tried to live his life in the hippie commune, and when violence came knocking, he went right back to being the Hound again.
Yep.
So now he's in another rebirth of himself. Danny, she went from being the Khaleesi to now being the Dragon Queen, where she's now full-fledged burning fuckers in their boats with 3 dragons. So it's kind of a rebirth for her. And then the most obvious one was last week, where Jon is, being trampled by all these guys, and he literally has to kind of crawl out of hell to be reborn again.
Yeah.
So we're dealing with characters who are in their second rebirth. And I feel like this scene with Jaime could be pushing him towards his next rebirth.
So, what do you think that catalyst is going to be when Walder Frey is toasting and he's saying that the Freys and the Lannisters send their regards? The regards to who? Who do you think is he addressing the Tullys? Who do you think he is proclaiming this to? Because that's not, you're not just going to raise a toast in a room of your family that way. Like, you're going to say that and present that to somebody.
The Blackfish is the last survivor of the Red Wedding, aside from Edmure.
Right.
So I'm assuming that it's probably a toast and kind of a jab at the Blackfish, kind of saying the Red Wedding's now complete. Lannisters and Frey send their regards. And Jaime's now being confronted with his own words from people that he doesn't really like all that much.
Yeah.
But I think the catalyst for Jaime is going to come later in this episode. I've been wondering why Jaime is kind of being left out of this King's Landing plot, and I'll get to that in a second because we have to talk about King's Landing.
Yes.
So, King's Landing is where it's all going down. We got the trial of Loras and the trial of Cersei.
Well, we only see the trial of Loras. We don't see a
Yes.
trial for Cersei. I'm still sticking to it that I don't think she's actually going to have a trial.
All right, so does Loras get a trial?
Yes.
And what do you think's going to happen to Loras?
Uh, I'm not sure because other than making people walk naked through the streets, I don't know what their MO is. So I don't know what they would do to him. But, we see him on his knees. We see him that he's had his beautiful curls all cut off. And the High Sparrow's in front of him. I mean, are they going to try and turn him into a sparrow? Are they going to put that horrible 7-pointed star branding or cutting on his forehead? Are they going to try to indoctrinate him to their group, possibly?
Well, we haven't seen the Faith of the Seven do yet?
A naked man? Well, no, we did. We saw that we did see a naked man walking through the street, doing his penance walk before. So no, I don't. What
We
what have
haven't
we have not seen?
we haven't seen this kind of like Spanish Inquisition style punishment. Like some sort of really cruel and awful death sentence.
Mm.
And I wonder if that's what Loras is going to be used for. Since we haven't seen the Faith of the Seven do that, it would be an interesting thing for them to put in there. Show their cruelty. Because we haven't seen them. I mean, we've seen them, fighting in the streets. We've seen them being cruel, but we haven't seen the highest levels of the faith engaging in that kind of cruelty. And I think it would be interesting to see that.
And what leads me to believe that that is possibly something that we could see is the soundtrack. The
Yeah.
soundtrack. There's I don't remember the track name.
Light of the Seven?
I think that's the one. That soundtrack, if you listen to that track, it gets very menacing and very dark.
Yeah, it's unlike anything I've heard.
Yeah. So that really does lead me to believe that there is something very, very dark and menacing that's going to happen with them. And that very well could be it.
It could be. We also have shots of Cersei where we see her from behind. So we don't get the full front shot of Cersei, but she's changed outfits, and the only way that I can describe her outfit. I mean, I'm only seeing it from the back, but it's this kind of like high necked dress. It looks like she's wearing, but it's like super villainous.
It looks almost like it's scales, doesn't it?
Yeah, and the shot of her in the trailer is framed in such a way that the arches in the windows almost look like horns coming out of her head.
She looks so cool. I mean, just from behind. I don't know what's going on the front of that outfit, but yeah, it's really, really cool and different than what she was wearing before.
It looks like here we're gonna have Tommen, Marjorie. We're gonna have Loris, Lady Olenna, who I think is in that overhead shot. We're gonna have all the players in King's Landing here. So we both think that Cersei's gonna do something crazy, right? I
Yeah.
mean, they've hinted at the wildfire, but what I'm curious about, and the thing that I haven't been able to pinpoint, is how exactly is this going to go down? Is this going to be a thing where she's going to try to burn down the Sept of Baelor like Daenerys did in earlier this season? Or is she going to try to go nuclear and destroy the entire city?
I think she's going to try to only destroy the Sept of Baelor, but I think it's going to get out of control and it's going to destroy more than what she was intending.
Like, is there a chance that everybody in King's Landing dies?
I don't think everybody will, but I think a good number of them will.
What do you think Cersei's odds are of surviving this episode?
I think she's going to survive her plot, whatever it is that she ends up doing. I think she will survive it, but part of me wants to say I don't think she's going to survive the episode.
Okay.
I really, really think her days are numbered.
I've been going back and forth on this, and it's led me to my big prediction. Do you want to hear my big prediction?
Uh, yeah. Yeah.
So my big prediction is this, because it involves the North and the White Walkers also.
Oh,
And
okay.
again, this is probably just some fan fiction in my own head, but this is how me, Nick, wants to see the season end.
Okay.
I want to see this on two fronts. On one side, up at the wall, I want to see Bran pass the wall, and because he's marked, it like undoes the magic that holds the wall together.
Mm-hmm.
White Walkers show up, and boom, they bring the entire wall down. I've always believed that this wall has to come down at some point. You don't build a wall in a fantasy world like this and not bring it down at some point, right? It has to come down. And I want the falling of the wall to cause an earthquake that just shakes Westeros. And while the earth is shaking, I also want Cersei to blow up the Sept of Baelor, and then that triggers all the other wildfire in King's Landing, causing a gigantic explosion of green in the sky that you can see for thousands of miles. And I want to see the ground shaking, and I want to see the sky on fire, and I want to see fire and ice, and I want to see people panicking. And
Wow.
then and then we are then at that point left with the people in the north being ruled by Jon and Dany coming over on her dragons. That's how I want to see the season end.
Wow.
That too ambitious?
That's pretty epic. Yeah, that's pretty ambitious.
And the reason why I would like that is if you wipe out everybody in King's Landing, which I kind of doubt that they can really realistically do, but if you wipe out everybody in King's Landing, Jaime now has a Lannister army and nobody to fight for. And he could now take that army and do something good with it.
That's true.
That's
That's really good. I don't think it's gonna happen, but it's
no,
really
neither do
good.
I. Neither do I.
But it's really good. See,
I think that's a good substitute for Clegane Bowl, though.
I still think we might get Clegane Bowl, just not in the manner that we thought we would get it.
Well, the thing I keep wondering is why is Jaime not back in King's Landing?
Well, that's another thing that my original predictions of where I thought this episode was going to go as far as his storyline goes kind of went all out the door when once I saw him sitting with the phrase. As soon as I saw that he is sitting at the Frey's table and not back at King's Landing, that threw what I thought was going to happen, because I thought it would be really cool, and I've heard other people talk about this too, and it just made sense, and I thought it would be just a really cool echoing of storylines is, to have Cersei going all crazy, saying that she's going to burn them all and she's going to go and try to light the wildfire, and Jaime is there and seeing that this is going to happen again and I'm going to save everybody and I'm going to kill her to stop it, like I did with the Mad King. To have that completely bookended with him being faced and having to do that. And then at that point, possibly taking their armies and going up to the north or something. But if he's sitting with the Freys, he's not even anywhere near King's Landing. I think this stuff is going to be happening on King's Landing this episode. I don't think that that's going to happen.
Well, and that would tie into the prophecy of Maggie the Frog. On the show in season 5, the season opened with Cersei hearing that prophecy from the witch, where she talked about her 3 children will all be dead. And in the books, that continues. It's actually, there's more stuff in that prophecy about how Cersei's life will end. And what you're talking about would be somewhat consistent with that prophecy. But there's also a few other things that could happen that would fulfill that too.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But do you think Tommen's done for in this episode?
Yeah.
So do I.
I
I think
really
Tommen's
do.
got to go. What about Marjorie?
I don't want her to go. I'm hoping she doesn't. I like her. I have a thing for smart, sarcastic, witty chicks, so I don't want her to go. So I don't know. I don't want her to.
I don't think she's going to die, and the reason that well, hold on, never mind. Hmm.
Are you changing
I've
your
been
mind right now?
so I've been thinking about whether or not Marjorie is going to be killed in the season finale. But what we haven't seen is her plan. We don't know her plan. So how much of this is actually going to play out? Is her plan just to rescue Loras? Do we not see what her plan is because it all gets undercut by Cersei going like crazy?
I think so. Yeah,
I
I think
think
so.
I don't. I mean, I like I said, I would like for all of King's Landing just to kind of go up in smoke, just for what it would, the chaos that it would create, and how it would, it would almost immediately elevate Jon as maybe the potential ruler,
Hmm.
if that's where everybody looks to, or even Littlefinger, if Littlefinger were to be, you know, offering himself to Sansa and Sansa were to accept. I mean, if you think about what the power dynamics are, but ultimately, what I think will happen, regardless of whether it's a big event or a smaller event where it's just the Sept of Baelor, I think power will be decentralized. Because the one thing we don't know is if Tommen does die, who inherits the throne?
I don't know. I've seen a couple different YouTube videos that discuss this, and it seems like ideas are all over the place. So I don't think there's any one person that it leads to. So I mean, how the Westeros conducts their thing, I have no idea how they would choose that, or what their lines of succession, how they would follow them, because it seems like all these other people that have tried to figure it out, they are following what they believe are the proper lines of succession, and it goes everything from it actually coming down to Cersei legitimately, or it going to um, oh, there were some crazy ones that I saw, and now I can't even remember any of them. But it's all over the board, so I
Like,
have
well,
no idea.
couldn't it be Jaime now? Wouldn't it go to a male heir before
He's not an
a
heir
female? And
though. He's not an
he
heir
is
though.
now. He is now that he's not in the Kingsguard anymore.
Oh. Yeah, but the Lannisters didn't necessarily have the crown. It was the Baratheons.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it could also be the oldest male kin, which would be Kevin, because it would fall to the Lannister side because there are no Baratheons left.
Right.
Or would it go to, or would they just put Marjorie in and have her as queen. I don't know. But that's part of the problem is power will become decentralized and now you have a huge clusterfuck.
Yeah, I
And I think that
have no idea.
regardless of whether or not our predictions on this episode come true, I think what we're going to be looking at is Danny flying towards a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
I mean, my theorizing on this can get pretty wild too because I mean, I could foresee a lot of different scenarios coming out of this.
Like what?
Um, I don't know. I mean, I've
Now,
got like
now you're
so
now you're sounding
like
like Sansa at a war planning.
so last season where Littlefinger offered Lady Olenna a young man who was going to help her out, right?
Yeah, they
Now,
haven't touched on that at all.
well, because I, as a viewer, assumed that he was talking about Lancel Lannister. And I know a lot of other people assume that too. But I know a lot of other people who have said, well, we've this is just kind of a lingering plot that's out there and we don't know who it was, we don't know who it was. And everybody wants to know who this young man that they're going to offer is. And people have said, well, maybe it's Gendry. And I was like, wouldn't it be interesting if it was Jon?
Oh.
What if Littlefinger knows Jon's lineage and he wants to hook Jon up with Marjorie?
Hmm.
But
Well,
that's
he's
getting like really, really crazy, and there's very scant evidence to support that. I mean, there's actually really no evidence to support that, except for a couple of looks that
yes.
Littlefinger gives in the crypt.
Yeah, I was just going to mention that. He seems as if he knows more during that conversation, but he doesn't say anything. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know about that because would he refer to John as a young man? I don't see him as a young man. I see him as a man, but not a young man.
Well, he had to kill the boy to let the man be born.
Well, figuratively, yes, that's true. I don't know. I actually thought when I heard that line, and it makes no sense, but the only thing that I could think of, because it was the only, quote unquote young man that I could think of that he had any tie to was Robin. But I'm like, that is not something you want to offer to anybody, because that is not a good deal. But that was the only thing that I could think of
Yeah,
that
like
fit the
here's a weird kid. Enjoy.
yeah. Here's this gangly kid that just stopped breastfeeding a few months ago. Ugh, gross.
Who else from King's Landing do you think's going to go down here? Like, I mean, are we thinking like full on mass death? I mean, you think that Marjorie and Cersei are going to make it, or no? You said Cersei won't.
I'm torn on it. Like part of me thinks that she's not gonna make it.
What about Lady Olenna, Pycelle, and Kevin?
I definitely want Lady Olenna to make it because I love her, and she has some of my favorite scenes in the entire series. And if she's alive, that means there's the potential for us to have more of her scenes. So yeah, for my own selfish reasons, I do not want her to die, and I do not think she will die.
I think all three are gone.
Really?
And I think throw Mace Tyrell in there for good measure.
Oh man. Well, I mean, if Cersei does what I think she's going to do, and if you see all of them in that overhead shot, and I haven't freeze framed it, I haven't looked at the overhead shot to see who's all there. What looks like Lancel, or not Lancel, what looks like Loris's trial. I don't know who's all there. But if they are all in there and Cersei's going to do what I think she's going to do, then yeah, they're all gone. But out of all of them, I want Lady Olenna to make it.
I don't know. I mean, again, I gave you my fan fiction of what I would like to see happen, but I do think the body count for this one will be high.
Yeah, I do too.
All right, so how about a couple of other things here? Will we see Sam? Yes or no?
Yes.
Will we see Jorah? Yes or no?
No.
I did make the prediction that we would see Jorah one more time, but I just don't think there's room for him.
Yeah, I made the prediction that I didn't think we would see him
But
this
you
season. I think we'll see him again, but I don't think we'll see him again this season.
like next time we see him, he'll be like all like half grayscale.
Maybe, or missing an arm or something.
Will we see the Hound?
Mm, no. No.
Will we learn John's true parentage?
Yes,
I think so too.
I think so too. And again, like some of the things that happened in the last episode, they are things that seemed a little bit predictable. They were things that we kind of knew were going to happen. I think this is another one of those things. But to actually see this legendary scene play out, I think will be awesome to witness.
So we are still getting to know our audience, and we don't know if you guys are as up on some of these classic fan theories as you are, but I think the world of like online media has also made some of these fan theories more accessible to people that aren't as obsessed with it as like you and I are. But just to kind of update you guys who are not as tuned in, there is a long standing theory about who Jon Snow's parents are. This has never been revealed in the books. It's just a theory that has been out there, and it looks like all evidence points to who his parents are. And I have met people who are fans of the show who have been able to piece this together on their own, and I have met book readers who have not been, which is really, really interesting. But there is a long-standing theory about who John's parents are.
Yeah, and that was actually the question that George R. R. Martin asked the Double D's, the showrunners, before they even started making the show. That was the one question that he asked them to give them the green light to go ahead and do this show, or have them be the showrunners. Where he said, "Who are Jon Snow's parents?" And they have not revealed who they said, but their answer was apparently either correct or one that George R. R. Martin really liked, because obviously they are the showrunners, and hopefully we will see their answer played out in this next episode.
Yeah. So last week, in our previews and predictions, I said that I was 100% sure that John was going to live. This week, I am 100% sure that we will find out who John's parents are.
Yeah, I am too. I am too.
And that will be a huge bit of news. I mean, there are going to be a lot of people who will say, well, everybody knew, but I think it'll be a huge bit of news because I just want to see something actually confirmed in the show.
Here's my question regarding the Tower of Joy. Do you think it's going to play out exactly the way we have been led to believe, or the speculation that has played out as to what the occurrence is up in that tower? Or do you think there's going to be some kind of a twist that's thrown in there, or something a little different?
Well, the thing about it that I've always taken into account about the books is when the books describe that scene in a fever dream, and the information that you get from a fever dream is not always accurate. So I feel like the show can kind of take some liberties with the story, and it wouldn't go down exactly that way. So I do feel that there's a bit of a curveball, but I don't think it's going to be some shocking, crazy thing that we weren't accepting. But it might
Yeah.
be kind of an aha. Oh, wasn't expecting that. But it wouldn't be like something crazy out of left field, like, you know, I don't know, Luke and
Yeah.
Leia or something.
Right. I don't have any specifics for any ideas of what I'm about to say, and it doesn't necessarily pertain to the Tower of Joyce in particular. But I feel like we haven't had any real curveballs thrown at us this season. Like there hasn't been anything really kind of out of left fields. And I can't necessarily say that everything has been predictable this season. There just hasn't been a shocking, either a shocking death or a shocking twist or anything like that. Maybe Hodor, because that I don't think anybody anticipated that he was going to die, so that was a bit shocking.
Well,
But
I,
I have
I
a feeling that there's something big is going to happen in this episode. That whether it's a death, or whether it's a twist or a turn that's going to happen, it feels like there has been tension that has built up. That it feels like there's going to be something that happens this episode that's going to shock us. Or maybe it's just because I want something to shock me, because it seems like a lot of things that have happened this season have kind of been predictable the way that we thought they were going to go, and there haven't been too many surprises. So I kind of want to be surprised.
I think there's going to be something in there that we're not expecting. I mean, I think it's going to be a big finale. I think there's going to be a lot of stuff going on. And we should also remind everybody that the director of this finale is also the same director who directed last week's episode. Though I don't think we're going to be getting a gigantic battle, I do think we are going to be getting a lot of plot movement here.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know if it was a quote from Miguel Sapochnik or who it was that said it, but I want to say I recall seeing or reading a quote from somebody saying that the 10th episode was going to be just as epic as the ninth one. Not necessarily in, effects and stunts and things like that, but it was just as big, but in a different way.
Mm, I think you could be right.
I think so too. Well, I mean, if Cersei does what I think she's going to do and ends up blowing up half of or all of King's Landing, I mean, that's pretty huge.
Either way, I think we're going to have a lot to talk about on next week's episode.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. Yeah, I think so too.
All right, so now you guys know what we think, but we want to know what you think, so hit us up on Twitter at NerdFlixChill or on Facebook under the same name. Let us know some of your bold and outlandish predictions for what you expect to see in the finale. Any closing thoughts?
I can't believe this is it. I can't believe the season is at an end. It seems like it was only just yesterday that we were speculating whether or not Jon was coming back from the dead and how was he going to be coming back. And now we're at the end of the season.
But just because the season is ending, that does not mean that we are ending. So we've got a lot of stuff planned, so you'll be able to stay tuned for all of that, because we're going to expand our conversation. We've got some movie reviews coming up that we're going to do. We've got some fun variety episodes. We're going to have some topics of discussion that are going to be out there. We will drop back in on Game of Thrones stuff as we get some stuff to talk about going in towards season 7. So a lot of big stuff coming from Nerdflix and Chill, and we can do that because of all you guys who listen to us. But that's all we've got for you. So be on the lookout for our next episode, which will be the recap and review of this episode, the Game of Thrones Season 6 finale, The Winds of Winter. Until next time, everybody, may the Force be with you.